Hi there, this is Diecast Channel, and in this video we're going to do a review on this 1970 Dodge Challenger, which is not an ordinary Challenger actually, and it's made in a 1/18 scale by Greenlight. We're going to take a closer look at this car and see through all its details. Are you curious about it? Stay with me to the end of this video, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up, to subscribe my channel, and also to click bell for news. So let's unbox this car and take a better look at it. And this is the 1970 Challenger Deputy. The 1970 Dodge Challenger was a totally new car that was launched in the segment of the pony cars, and it was a sort of a late participant in that group, since Mustang was in line since 1964 and the Barracuda was even before that. We also had Camaro since 1967, but Challenger was a little late to the game, but came as a very nice product with very expressive sales for 1970, even though these cars had some quality control issues and customers were not very satisfied about those, but they started being corrected at the time. This E-body was a brand new body for 1970, and it was not only for the Dodge Challenger but also for the Plymouth Barracuda that was completely redesigned for 1970. Barracuda was a little bit shorter than Challenger, but unfortunately both cars were retired in 1974 due to the oil crisis and some other factors that ended up the muscle car era, and cars started having their power strangled due to regulations and emission controls and all that stuff. The standard engine was a 198 cubic inch slant 6. Also had a 225, a 318, and a 383 as optionals. The two last ones were V8s. The seats were basically cheaper seats, standard Barracuda seats, and the steering wheel was also the basic Barracuda steering wheel. It was a Barracuda from the inside almost. It didn't count on some other options such as a wood grain pattern on the doors and on the dashboard. Rear side windows were fixed in place. They didn't roll up and down. And in the place where you could find the crank in the basic models and the other Challenger models, for the Deputy there was a rounded metal chrome trim to close this hole where the crank would be. The car didn't have dual horns, cigar lighter, night and day mirrors. They were all optional for this car. And there were only 6 Deputies with a 383 engine, and 2 were equipped with a 4-barrel. This would make this car very rare. The Deputies are nowadays pretty rare cars. They basically had 3-speed automatic, 3-speed manual on a steering column, or 4 on the floor. This model car is made by Greenlight in a 1/18 scale. That's a pretty nice model car, but we must remind that this line is an intermediate model car line, so we can't really expect as much sophistication as we can find in a Highway 61, for instance. Still, it's a pretty nice product with very nice details and very nice features we can find in an intermediate diecast model car, such as a removable hood clips, the more realistic door hinges. So this is a pretty honest product for its price. It's got some issues, it's got some mirrors we're gonna explore as I review this car. So we're gonna take a look at this car and its details right now. In front of a 1970 Dodge Challenger, we have this completely new design for 1970, since there was not a 1969 Dodge Challenger. And it features the dual headlights with this rectangular grille, which is a little bit more rectangular in the original car and also a little flatter than this one, instead of having this curve that Greenlight made for this model. Still, it's a pretty nice reproduction with a pretty decent mesh, nice trim around it, and the Challenger logo on the driver's side that looks pretty good and realistic. This Chrysler badge, made in a sort of a photo etched, also mocks the real emblem quite well. Those turn signals look pretty good. They have a pretty good realism, as well as the headlights. Windshield has a pretty good transparency, and the paint job is quite well made. I would say it's a pretty decent model car for an intermediate model. In the case of this car, it features a 383 engine. It could also be an option for the Deputy. The basic Deputy would come with the slant 6. So the engine bay looks pretty decent, pretty nice, with the radiator, reservoir, cables, wires, alternator, the air filter, pin, brake master cylinder, and a firewall. It looks pretty decent. I don't know if this car had power brakes at the time. you would probably have as a safety option, or could also be further installed by the owner, since this was a basic model. And the posts that have actual clips, which is a nice detail by Greenlight. The nicely made photo etched Challenger logo and the retractable antenna. Very nicely made wheel covers that were also available for other Chrysler products. It looks very nice. And the working suspension, which is a nice feature by Greenlight. Nicely made acrylic side markers. Those are actually acrylic parts. They're not painted on like those ones in Auto World Authentics, which is aligned with a higher level than this one. It's a very nice detail. Orange for the front and red for the rear ones. So they're separate parts with the correct colors for the different models. Trim around the wheel wells are cast in metal and painted on, and very nicely made. Wheels and tires look very nice. The interior of the car looks pretty nice. It's got some issues that were related to probably some sort of economy made by Greenlight, since it used the same items for the other versions of the Dodge Challenger that wouldn't be present in the Deputy, such as wood grain pattern on the steering wheel, and also the wood grain pattern on the door panels that would not be available for the Challenger Deputy, since this car would be much simpler than the other cars. Cushions also look like the ones in the Challenger, but not the ones in the Barracuda. That would be the simpler ones. Pattern is quite different. That would also be an issue by Greenlight. On the other hand, the dashboard looks pretty decent, looks pretty nice with all gauges, made with the correct bezels. I believe this part would be black instead of white. Features real carpet on the floor, which is very nice. It features a seal plate, was just not painted. Seat belts with the buckles look pretty realistic. The seats look good, although they do not tilt. They look like they do, but the pedals look nice. The gas, brake, and clutch. This is a car with a mechanical transmission, probably a 4-on-the-floor. I'm not quite sure of it. It could be, since this was an option for the 383 engine. Door panels look nice. Door opening looks nice with the correct hinges instead of those dog-leg hinges. From the passenger side, pistol grip gear lever. I believe this was not necessarily an optional for this car, but probably an accessory that could be put by the owner at the time. Dashboard looks good with the Challenger logo. Glove box lid is fixed in place. Carpet looks nice. And this car features a central console, which is not an option for the Challenger Deputy. This is about the same mistake made in the other Challengers. No window crank, and in this case, no chrome button. There's only a simulation of a headliner made in the glass piece. Looks okay. Rear end of the Challenger with those very nice acrylic tail lights. You only missed the reverse lights here. The Dodge logo looks nice, looks pretty decent. Trunk lid looks good with the pretty good logo made in photo etched. And this trunk lid rack that was an optional for Challenger Deputy. Back window has a pretty good transparency with a chrome trim around it made in a very nice chrome. The bumper looks pretty decent. The trim around the tail lights also looks very nice. Dual exhaust. The bumper guards look pretty decent. Pretty nice model car. It's according to its price. Trunk looks good. Features gas pipe, a spare tire, and only the spare tire has got a wheel cover. That would not be actually correct, since spare tire would be fixed down with a wheel face in the trunk bottom. The jack, trunk hinges look nice. Challenger did not offer a big trunk, so it was quite common for punny cars at the time. It doesn't have the rubber seal around here, which is okay for an intermediate model. The opening is pretty good. Overall, it's pretty well made. Trunk lid with its reinforcements. It's got studs here that would hold the luggage rack. Okay, and there are no instructions for the jack. Some details in Greenlight cars are pretty nice, but some details, such as this trunk lock, could be improved. It could be a piece of plastic or even cast in metal instead of just this car's got a pretty decent undercarriage. It's got the correct engine and the correct color, which would be the Miami orange. The mechanical transmission, which is correct and looks pretty correct in the aluminum color. That would be alright. These mufflers in this aluminum color that mock galvanized steel. The non-spin and drive shaft and the rear and front suspensions. I would just work a little bit on the texture. They still have too much car floor texture instead of being a glossier black like that would be in a real car. This car features a work suspension, durable front wheels. The muffler tips are made in chrome. The leaf springs for the rear, just like the other Chryslers, and the unibody construction type with a subframe and the torsion bars for the front suspension. That would be the differential for Chrysler. Not all Chryslers would have this black floor, but would have a body color and primer color in the bottom. But that's okay, that's all right, no problems really. Overall, it's a very nice and decent From model. 0 to 10, I would give an 8 to this car. It's a pretty decent grade for a pretty decent intermediate model car. It's got some very desirable detail for an intermediate model car that you cannot find in more sophisticated brands such as Highway 61, for instance. The dashboard for Highway 61 and the newer versions really not as good as the one we see in this model car. Features a retractable antenna, retaining pins with the posts, very nice wheels and tires, nice side markers made in acrylic parts, logos made in photo etched instead of just decals. It's a nicely made model car. The minuses would be some details that were not actually from the Challenger Deputy. So they would be present in some different versions of that Challenger. But since Greenlight has probably used the same tooling used for different versions of Dodge Challengers to live the car as is, and for those who do not observe those details, they would just go by it with no problems really. It's still a very nice product, a very nice car to have in a collection, especially if you like those Mopars and those Challengers. Besides, the Dodge Challenger is a very desirable car, and these low price versions would become more and more rare as time goes by, since several of those cars were upgraded to more interesting versions at a time. So I'd like to thank you for all likes and views, for all subscriptions. Please don't forget to subscribe in case you haven't subscribed yet, and give me your thumbs up. This helps the channel a lot. And also, don't forget to click the bell for news. And if you have any further information on the Challenger or on the Challenger Deputy, since information about this car is pretty hard to find on the internet or from the books, you want to share with us in the comments, please do so in your comments, and feel free to give me your feedback on the video and on the car. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.